Graduation Day. Columbia University. May 2024. The day I'd worked toward for 7 years. I sat in the front row wearing my cap and gown, hands trembling slightly as I held my speech notes. Around me, hundreds of graduates buzzed with excitement. Families filled the auditorium. Cameras flashed. Everyone was celebrating. Everyone except the people who mattered most to me. My family sat in the third row. Mom, Dad, my aunt and uncle, and my cousin Derek. Derek, who'd made my entire life a living hell. Derek, who'd spent 26 years telling me I was worthless. Derek, who was currently whispering something to his parents and laughing. I knew he was talking about me. I always knew. See, Derek was the golden child. Harvard graduate. Investment banker. 6-figure salary by 25. Engaged to a lawyer. Everything he touched turned to gold. Everything I touched, according to my family, turned to failure. I'd taken 7 years to finish my undergraduate degree. 7 years instead of 4. Not because I was stupid, but because I'd worked 3 jobs to pay for it. Because my parents refused to help me financially. Because they'd spent all their money putting Derek through Harvard while I got community college and student loans. She's not Harvard material, I'd heard my father say once. Why waste the money? So I did it myself. Worked overnight shifts at a hospital. Waited tables on weekends. Tutored during the day. Took classes whenever I could afford them. Transferred to Columbia after 3 years at community college. And now, 7 years later, I was graduating summa cum laude with a degree in biomedical engineering. But my family didn't see that achievement. They saw the 7 years. They saw the struggle. They saw someone who couldn't keep up with Derek. I watched Derek whisper something else. My aunt laughed. My mother looked uncomfortable but said nothing. That's when the dean approached the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is our class valedictorian. She will be joining our PhD program in the fall with a full scholarship, conducting groundbreaking research in neural engineering. Please welcome Sarah Mitchell. The applause was deafening. I stood up. My legs felt weak. I'd practiced this speech 100 times. But now, looking at my family's shocked faces, I realized something. They had no idea I was valedictorian. I hadn't told them. Hadn't sent them the letter. Hadn't mentioned that I'd been selected to speak. I'd just sent the graduation invitation and left it at that. Derek's face had gone pale. My father's mouth hung open. My mother looked confused. I walked to the podium. Adjusted the microphone. Looked out at the sea of faces. Faculty. Students. Families. And my family, sitting there realizing for the first time that maybe they'd been wrong about me. Good afternoon, I began. My voice was steady. Stronger than I expected. 7 years ago, I started my college journey at Bergen Community College. I was 18 years old, working 3 jobs, and I had $47 in my bank account. I saw my mother flinch. We'd never talked about this publicly. Never acknowledged how they'd abandoned me financially while funding Derek's Ivy League education. People told me I was taking too long. That 7 years for an undergraduate degree meant I was failing. That I should just give up and find a regular job. That education wasn't for people like me. Derek shifted in his seat. He'd said those exact words to me at Christmas 3 years ago. But here's what I learned during those 7 years. Success isn't about how fast you finish. It's about whether you finish at all. It's about the obstacles you overcome. The nights you keep going when everything in you wants to quit. The moments you choose yourself when everyone else has given up on you. My voice grew stronger. More confident. I worked as a hospital orderly on the overnight shift. I cleaned bedpans and mopped floors while my classmates slept. I waited tables every weekend, serving people who looked right through me. I tutored students whose parents paid me more for 1 hour than I made in a week at my other jobs. And I studied. God, I studied. In break rooms. On subway rides. In my car between shifts. The auditorium was completely silent now. Everyone was listening. I could see people in the audience wiping their eyes. 2 years ago, I was accepted into Columbia's biomedical engineering program with a transfer scholarship. Last year, I was invited to join a research team developing neural interfaces for paralysis patients. And 3 months ago, I received a full scholarship for Columbia's PhD program, where I'll continue that research. The audience erupted in applause. But I wasn't finished. None of that happened because I was naturally gifted. It happened because I refused to accept other people's limitations of me. Because I decided my worth wasn't determined by how long it took me to succeed, but by the fact that I succeeded at all. I paused, looked directly at Derek, then at my parents. To everyone sitting here who's taken longer than expected to reach this moment, whether it's because you worked, because you struggled, because life got in the way, I want you to know something. Your timeline is valid. Your success is real. And anyone who judges you for taking the scenic route doesn't understand that sometimes the scenic route teaches you things the highway never could. More applause. Louder this time. Students were standing. Faculty members nodded in agreement. I'm grateful for every obstacle I faced. Every person who doubted me. Every moment I wanted to quit but didn't. Because those experiences didn't break me. They built me. They made me someone who understands resilience, who values education not as a privilege but as a hard-won right, who knows exactly how much a degree costs when you pay for it yourself. I gripped the podium, gathering courage for what came next. There are people in my life who told me I was wasting my time, that 7 years was embarrassing, that I'd never amount to anything because I wasn't following the traditional path. And for a long time, I believed them. I internalized that shame. I apologized for taking up space. My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed forward. But standing here today as valedictorian of Columbia University's class of 2024, I have something to say to those people. You were wrong. Your narrow definition of success was wrong. Your timeline was not my timeline. And your disappointment in me says more about your limitations than mine. The audience was completely still. This wasn't a typical graduation speech anymore. This was personal, raw, real. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful. Because your doubt motivated me. Your dismissal fueled me. Every time you laughed at my struggle, you gave me another reason to prove you wrong. So thank you. Thank you for underestimating me. Because it made this moment so much sweeter. I saw my mother crying. My father looked devastated. Derek stared at his hands. To my fellow graduates, especially those of you who took the long way here, never let anyone make you feel less than because you struggled. Your struggle is your strength. Your perseverance is your power. And your success, whenever it comes, is yours alone. I took a breath. Looked out at the audience one more time. 7 years ago, I had nothing but determination and $47. Today, I have a degree from Columbia University, a PhD position, a research opportunity that could change lives, and the absolute certainty that I earned every single bit of it. That's not failure. That's triumph. And no one can ever take that away from me. The auditorium exploded. People weren't just clapping, they were cheering. Students jumped to their feet. Faculty members stood. The ovation went on for nearly 2 minutes. I walked back to my seat. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking, but I felt lighter than I had in years. The ceremony continued. Degrees were conferred. Names were called. I walked across that stage, shook the dean's hand, and received my diploma with summa cum laude honors. When it was over, when the caps were thrown and the music played, I stood in the crowd of celebrating graduates. That's when my family approached. My mother reached me first. Her face was streaked with tears. Sarah, I had no idea that I was valedictorian, that I had a PhD scholarship, that I was doing groundbreaking research. I interrupted. My voice was calm but firm. You didn't know because you never asked. My father stepped forward. We're proud of you. We always have been. No, I said quietly. You weren't. You were embarrassed by me. Ashamed that I took 7 years while Derek took 4. You compared me to him constantly, and I always came up short. That's not fair, my aunt interjected. We've always supported you. I turned to her. You told me last Thanksgiving that I should drop out and become a nurse instead. Said it was more practical for someone like me. Do you remember that? Her face went red. She did remember. Derek finally spoke. Sarah, come on. We're family. Can't we just celebrate today? Family? I repeated. You've called me the family disappointment for 7 years. You laughed at me for working at a hospital instead of going straight to a university. You told people I wasn't smart enough for a real degree. You mocked every job I worked, every struggle I faced. And now you want to claim credit for my success. People around us were starting to stare. Other families glancing over. My mother looked mortified. Let's not do this here, Dad said quietly. Let's go somewhere private and talk. No, I said. I don't think so. You had 7 years to have a private conversation with me. 7 years to ask about my life, my dreams, my struggles. You didn't. You wrote me off. So now we're done. My mother gasped. Sarah, you don't mean that. I absolutely mean it. I'm done seeking approval from people who never believed in me. I'm done trying to prove myself to a family that decided my worth based on how closely I followed Derek's path. I'm done. I pulled an envelope from my gown pocket. I'd prepared it weeks ago, hoping I wouldn't need it, but knowing I probably would. This is an invitation to a private reception tonight at Professor Chen's house. He's my research advisor and mentor for the past 2 years. He's hosting a celebration for me and a few other students. You're not invited. None of you are. I handed the envelope to my mother. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a card with a simple message, to the people who believed in me when my family didn't. That's cruel, my aunt said. No, I corrected. What's cruel is spending 7 years making someone feel worthless. What's cruel is funding one child's education while refusing to help another. What's cruel is laughing at your niece's graduation because you think she's a failure. That's cruelty. This is consequence. Derek stepped forward. For the first time, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Sarah, I'm sorry. I really am. I was a jerk. I was jealous, actually. That caught me off guard. Jealous. Yeah. Everything was handed to me. School. Job. Money. I never had to work for anything. But you? You built everything yourself. And watching you succeed despite having nothing, it made me realize how little I'd actually accomplished on my own. His voice cracked. Real emotion there. I took out my insecurity on you. Made you feel small so I could feel big. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I studied his face. Saw genuine remorse there. Maybe. Or maybe he just hated being called out publicly. I appreciate the apology, I said carefully. But it doesn't erase 7 years of cruelty. It doesn't undo the damage. I know. But maybe we could start over? Slowly? I thought about it. Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell. But another part, the part that still remembered playing together as kids before everything got complicated, wanted to believe people could change. Maybe, I said finally. But not today. Today, I'm celebrating with people who saw my worth when you didn't. People who supported me when my own family couldn't be bothered. I turned to leave. My mother grabbed my arm. Sarah, please. Don't leave like this. You're our daughter. We love you. Do you? I asked. Because love isn't just words. It's action. It's support. It's believing in someone even when they're struggling. You didn't do any of that. You abandoned me because I wasn't easy. Because I wasn't perfect like Derek. Because I needed help and you decided I wasn't worth the investment. That's not true, my father protested. We just thought. You thought I'd fail, I interrupted. Be honest. You thought I was wasting time and money on a degree I'd never finish. You thought Derek was the smart one and I was the disappointment. Admit it. The silence was damning. Because he couldn't deny it. None of them could. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Goodbye. I hope Derek's next achievement makes you proud. Because mine clearly don't matter. I walked away. Didn't look back. Joined a group of my classmates who'd witnessed the whole thing. They hugged me. Congratulated me. Celebrated with me. That night, I went to Professor Chen's house. It was beautiful, a brownstone in Brooklyn filled with books and warmth and genuine kindness. There were about 15 people there. My research team. A few professors who'd mentored me. My roommate Jessica, who'd kept me sane through the hardest years. My manager from the hospital who'd worked around my class schedule for 4 years. These were my people. My chosen family. The ones who'd seen me at my worst and still believed in my best. Professor Chen raised a glass. To Sarah, who embodies everything we hope to teach our students about resilience, innovation, and determination. Your research is going to change lives. But more than that, your story is going to inspire countless students who think success has to look a certain way. We're honored to know you. Everyone drank. I cried happy tears. These people had invested in me when my own family wouldn't. Had seen potential when others saw failure. Had celebrated every small victory like it was a major achievement. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you for believing in me. For not giving up on me when I wanted to give up on myself. For seeing past the 7 years to the person I was becoming. Jessica pulled me aside later. That speech today was incredible. Brutal. But incredible. How do you feel? Lighter, I admitted. I've been carrying their disappointment for so long. Trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided I wasn't worth believing in. And today I just let it go. Let them go. Good, she said firmly. You don't need them. You never did. She was right. I'd built my entire success without my family's support. Their approval now meant nothing. It was too late. Too little. Over the next few weeks, my family tried to reconnect. My mother called repeatedly. My father sent emails. Derek showed up at my apartment once. I didn't answer the calls. Didn't respond to the emails. Told Derek through the door that I wasn't ready to talk. I wasn't being cruel. I was protecting myself. Because I'd spent 7 years being hurt by their words, their dismissal, their cruelty. And I wasn't going to let them back in just because I'd finally succeeded in a way they could understand. 3 months later, I started my PhD program. The research was fascinating, developing brain-computer interfaces that could help paralyzed patients regain movement. Work that mattered. Work that could genuinely change lives. I threw myself into it. Published my first paper within 6 months. Presented at a conference. Started building a reputation in my field. My family stayed away. Mostly. I heard through extended relatives that Derek had broken off his engagement. That my parents' marriage was struggling. That everyone was dealing with their own stuff. I felt a twinge of sympathy. But mostly I felt relief. Relief that their problems weren't mine anymore. That I wasn't responsible for their happiness or their approval. A year after graduation, I was invited to speak at a TED conference. My topic, the myth of the 4-year degree and what taking 7 years taught me about real success. The talk went viral. Millions of views. Articles written about it. Students from around the world reaching out to thank me for validating their non-traditional paths. And that's when my family tried to come back. Suddenly, I was someone worth claiming. Someone whose success reflected well on them. Someone they could brag about. My mother called. Sarah, I saw your TED Talk. It was beautiful. I'm so proud of you. We should have dinner. Catch up. No thank you, I said politely. Sarah, please. We're family. We made mistakes, but we want to make it right. You had plenty of opportunities to make it right. You chose not to. I've moved on. You can't just cut us out forever, she said, frustration creeping into her voice. Watch me, I replied. And hung up. Derek sent a letter. A real, handwritten letter. In it, he apologized again. More thoroughly this time. explained that therapy had helped him understand how his jealousy and insecurity had manifested as cruelty. Said he understood if I never forgave him, but wanted me to know he was working on being better. The letter was thoughtful, genuine, and I appreciated it. But I still wasn't ready. Maybe I'd never be ready. And that was okay. 2 years after graduation, my research team achieved a breakthrough. We successfully helped a patient who'd been paralyzed for 8 years regain limited movement in his hand. It was all over the news. My name was everywhere. My family reached out again. This time through my aunt, who I'd always been closer to than the others. Sarah, I know you have every right to be angry. But your parents are getting older. Your dad had a health scare last month. They want to know you. To be part of your life. Is there any chance you'd consider meeting with them? Just once. I thought about it for a long time. Talked it through with my therapist. With Jessica. With Professor Chin. You don't owe them anything, Professor Chin said. But sometimes closure comes from having the hard conversation. From saying your piece and then walking away for good. He was right. I agreed to meet them. One time. At a neutral location. With clear boundaries. We met at a coffee shop. My parents looked older. Tired. My father's health issues had aged him considerably. My mother's eyes were sad. Thank you for coming, Mom said quietly. I'm here because I want closure, I said directly. Not reconciliation. I want to say what I need to say, and then I want to move on with my life. They both nodded, looking smaller than I remembered. You hurt me, I said. My voice was steady. You made me feel worthless for 7 years. You compared me to Derek constantly, and I never measured up. You refused to help me financially while funding his entire education. You mocked my jobs, my timeline, my struggles. And when I finally succeeded, you wanted to take credit. That's not okay. That's not how family works. We know, Dad said hoarsely. We were wrong. We were so focused on Derek's achievements that we couldn't see yours. We bought into the idea that there's only one path to success. We failed you. Completely. Yes, you did, I agreed. And I need you to understand, I don't need your approval anymore. I don't need your pride. I built my entire career without you. I succeeded in spite of you, not because of you. And I'm proud of that. Mom was crying. We're so sorry. If we could go back. But you can't, I interrupted gently. You can't undo 7 years of damage. You can't erase the pain. And I can't pretend it didn't happen just because you're sorry now. We sat in silence. Finally, Dad spoke. What do you need from us? Nothing, I said honestly. I needed you 7 years ago. I don't need you anymore. I have people who love me, who believe in me, who celebrate my success without qualification. That's enough. I stood up. I forgive you. Because holding on to anger was exhausting. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means I'm letting go of the pain so I can move forward. Without you. I walked out of that coffee shop feeling free. Truly free. My family had tried to define me by their standards, their timeline, their approval. But I defined myself instead. And that made all the difference.